and a lot of independence. Like, we had freedom to go around the neighborhood, we had freedom to make decisions. My parents really looked at us always as like mini adults, like step up. They encouraged us to find our passions, they weren't controlling. Figure skating was an example of independence for me. So my parents hate my ice skating past. They thought I should play tennis, they thought I should do something else. My parents told me, if you want to skate, like, you pay for it yourself. There was a competition every year, a fundraising competition, and that's how I got my skates every year, is every year I won it. And that's how I paid for my skates. I exchanged babysitting in exchange for ice skating lessons. I look back, like, now as a mother, like, I think about the amount of freedom that we had, and, you know, I'm impressed. I look at the Stanford campus community, and the people I grew up with were people who did things that were meaningful. They weren't necessarily financially successful, but they were contributing to society in some way. And so there was always that sense, is like, you should contribute, you should give back, you should, like, you know, your children should look at you and be proud.
So good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Esther, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me okay? Or should I get a headphone set?
There we go. Hey, no, we hear you fine.
Great. Very excited to be part of this conference. I cannot tell you how exciting it is.
Well, we're really excited to have you. And at the end of this fireside chat, we're going to actually get you to make a promise, but I'll get to that in a second. It's really a privilege to have you here with us virtually in Tel Aviv at the Rabin Center. We've got a nice group at the end of a very full day, and in a lot of ways, I think the discussion that we're going to have is a great segue between some of the things we've been talking about today and some of the issues that we're going to deal with tomorrow. The first thing that I want to do is override your image with a picture of the cover of your book. So if the team in the back can just put up the slide. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that Esther recently wrote a book. Guys, do you have the slide? All right, the slide will come up in a second, but I happen to have the book with me right here. It's called How to Raise Successful People, and it's about more than just parenting, and that's something that we're going to be talking about. I've been reading the book over the last couple of days. In a lot of ways, I feel like I've been traveling around. Here we go. That's the cover of the book. It's available at Steinmatsky, probably all over the country, and if your particular branch doesn't have it, you could ask them to get it to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about the book and its really broad application, but before we get into that, I just want to start on a little more general level, since you're sitting in Palo Alto, and like it or not, you're known as the godmother of Silicon Valley. And I'd love for you to just comment on what that actually means. Like, why do you think that you're considered the godmother of Silicon Valley?
Well, I think one of the main reasons is because I've had a very successful journalism program at Palo Alto High School for 37 years. And it started in 1984, and I had about 19 kids at the time. And today there's over 700 students. Many of my students have turned out to be extremely successful entrepreneurs. And also I've been teaching at Stanford in a program called Media X. And in that program, I've been also an advisor to multiple startups. So I think that's where the godmother of Silicon Valley comes from, because there's so many people out there that see me as, I guess, the beginning of why they decided to be an entrepreneur. And I must tell you, I'm honored to be in that position.
Okay, and you do have an interesting perspective on Silicon Valley because you arrived there quite some time ago. How has it changed in your view over the years that you've been there?
Well, Silicon Valley has changed dramatically. When I first arrived here, well, actually I arrived here at the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, and Stanford Stanford used to be called a farm. That was the nickname, farm. And I really didn't understand it until I moved here and I realized that nothing ever happened here. Nothing. There were just cows on the hill. And the students were so well behaved. Honestly, it was like, why are you so quietly? Why don't you rebel? What's going on here? And then if you just looked across the bay at Berkeley, it was the total opposite. Students were picketing all the time and rebelling. So that was what it was like when I first moved here. And today, it is dramatically different because today there's startups everywhere and all the students are full of ideas. Some of them a little crazy, but they're still ideas. And I find it very exciting to be here and to talk to all the students.
So can you put your finger on the moment when you feel like that was the watershed, that's when everything changed, or was it much more fluid?
I don't know if there was a specific moment. It sort of gradually happened. I would say that if I had to pick a moment when it happened, it was really when Google started in 1999, 2000, roughly. And Google started off, it was very quiet actually for Google. There were a lot of search engines at the time. I remember it seemed to be search engine heaven around here. And people couldn't figure out which search engine was the best search engine. And, but there were lots of them. And I think that that's probably the time when things got really exciting. And then after that, it just continued with more and more people becoming interested in different things. And I mean, I would walk down University Avenue and have coffee at a cafe called University Cafe. And everywhere there were people having little coffee sessions and talking about the things they were going to do, like this company and that company. They were doing deals right there in front of your eyes. That's when it all happened.
So you feel like
Pretty
Google
exciting.
was a bit of a catalyst for
I think
the
it
vibe
was
that it
somewhat of a
now.
catalyst
Yeah.
for
Okay.
it caused more and more people to be excited. And yeah, it was a big catalyst because basically what it was doing is allowing everybody to search for whatever they wanted. And before that, well, you had Yahoo, and I don't know if you remember Yahoo, but I bought a big book about Yahoo. It was called the Yahoo Yellow Pages. And I had to search for what I wanted in the Yellow Pages. And then I went online and found what I wanted.
Right.
Because it was curated by hand, and was the big difference.
Right.
And when Google showed up, everyone got even more excited.
Right. I'm not sure what you're able to see. Can you see the room? Are you able to see?
Can anybody see my room?
No,
Would like
no,
to
no.
see
Are
my
you able
room?
to see our room? We see your. What is that book on the second show? No, just kidding. I don't know if you can see this, but just show of hands. How many have been to Silicon Valley in the room? So about half the room. All right. Well, if you're there, I'm sure that Esther would be happy to take you out for a cup of coffee.
I would be delighted if you want to come visit my Media Arts Center, 25,000 square feet.
Right.
Huge.
Which I've done, and it's like nothing you've ever seen. Let's go to the book for a second. So there's an environment, at least in the U.S. It'd be interesting to, at the end, have a little bit of Q&A to understand if helicopter parenting exists here as well. But certainly in the U.S., helicopter parenting has become pervasive and is a bit of a phenomenon right now. And at its extreme, we see parents going through to great lengths, even criminal lengths, to help their kids succeed. In a lot of ways, your book, as I read it, I feel like it was a surface-to-air missile launched at the helicopter you might feel like that's a little bit of an overstatement, but knowing you, maybe not. How do you, how did you come to write the book? What was the inspiration for it, and how do you feel your book lives, and the values expressed in the book live within this environment of helicopter parenting?
We have an epidemic of helicopter parenting here in the United States. And I would say the epicenter is in the Bay Area. We had this national scandal where a man who said he was a tutor, actually, what he did, he might have tutored the students, but what he did is he cheated for them. And some of the parents were aware of that, and some of the parents, they claim they didn't know. But what he did is he erased the wrong SAT score, SAT answer, and then he facilitated their entry into exclusive colleges. So this is what I think of as the end result of a childhood or a whole development period of helicopter parenting, where the parents clear the way for the child and make sure that everything is going perfectly. And it's been a real problem all over the country. Kids don't develop a sense of empowerment or a sense of autonomy because they're so protected and so coddled that they don't think independently for themselves. They're worried. And unfortunately, this continues even into the college years, where a woman named Julie Lidcott-Haynes wrote a popular book 2 years ago called How to Raise an Adult. She is the former dean of admissions at Stanford. And she wrote the book because she saw this problem happening at the university level. So what I'm trying to do with my book is to show parents how important it is and how valuable it is to give students control and empower them early in life. And you'll read lots of stories from my children's upbringing, which shows that my main goal, starting with their birth, was to teach them to be as independent as possible, give them as many skills as possible so that they could do things, even like make their own breakfast, which meant pouring a bowl of cereal into a bowl, or pouring cereal into a bowl, when they were 2 years old. And so what it did is it gave them a sense of, I can do it, and I can figure my way out of any kind of a situation that I have, because that was the way that they were treated all the time. They always were given an option which meant that they could do it. And I broke down these skills into little things that they could do so they could be successful. I wasn't going to ask them to do something that was, not appropriate for their age. So I think you saw that video at the beginning and you see what they said about how much control and freedom they had. And I'll tell you, this really contributed to the type of people they are today. I think actually built into Jewish culture, which is part of what I am, of course, is the sense that you want your child to be as independent as possible. But then there's also this fear that they might make a mistake. That's what I think we need to worry about. We need to make sure that we're not over-parenting and causing an unintended consequence of making them feel that they can't do it without the help of you or a teacher or someone else. Because if they feel that way, then they grow up feeling that way. And it's not productive.
Esther, I'm sure most people here know a bit about your family, but if you wouldn't mind, for the few that don't, could you just describe the meager accomplishments of your daughters?
So my oldest daughter, Susan, is the CEO of YouTube. And as you know, that's probably one of the most difficult CEO positions in the world today. And she is challenged by it, and she's trying to make the world a better place. That is her goal. Her goal is to democratize video for everyone. But of course, as we know, it's a very difficult position, because when she does one thing, people get mad. If she's too restrictive, if she's not restrictive enough, they get mad. I mean, here in the US, we have this phrase called whack-a-mole. So you're whacking one mole, and then another one pops up. And then you whack that one, and another one pops up. So you're in a position of it's very difficult, but she's working on it. So there's an example of, somebody who's really has to think independently and be empowered. My second daughter is Janet. She is a professor of pediatrics at the University of California, San Francisco. And she was trained as an epidemiologist and medical anthropologist as well. And she's looking at the causes of obesity worldwide, childhood obesity. And she says that obesity starts, and you can predict it at 18 months of age. My third daughter is Anne, and she is the co-founder and the CEO of the personal genetics company 23andMe. And her goal, of course, is to put you in charge of your healthcare. Because when you know your DNA and when you know how to take care of yourself, there's no one who's more interested in you than you yourself. And so her company is doing exceptionally well. And I'm, of course, very proud of my daughters. And it's probably the Jewish mother syndrome.
So thanks for sharing that. I know we're about to run out of time. There's so much more that I wanted to cover. And I don't think we're going to have time to do it. One point that I did want to make, a takeaway that I had in reading the book, is that everything that you're talking about in terms of your family and parenting and teaching also applies within the corporate setting as well, and that there are so many of the values that you have incorporated as a parent and a teacher that you also believe should be part of corporate culture. I don't think that we're going to have time to go into that, so I would say people should read the book. What I can do, if you just give me 1 minute, is ask if we could just field one or two questions. Would that be okay, Yaki? Just one question? One question. It's always shocking, like in Israel, when people are shy and they don't, and when they're asked to have a question, they don't have one. They need to yell it out. Come on, one question. Willa, I'm going to have to call on you if... Okay, here, we have one question right here. Did you hear that? What are you doing about the pressure in Palo Alto high schools, the pressure to succeed, I presume?
So let me respond to that question. So there is a lot of pressure at Palo Alto High School. And my students, I'm happy to say that my students just exhibited exactly the kind of skills that I'm hoping they will exhibit for life. While I was gone last week, they made a decision that they were going to eliminate a 40-year-old tradition where they published what was called a college map. It was a map of the United States showing exactly where every student went to college. And then under it was their name and their college they were going to. They decided, the 5 of them, that they were going to get rid of this map because what it did is create incredible pressure. The first thing that parents did when they came to graduation was grab that newspaper and look at the college map so you could see a whole sea of people with newspapers in front of their faces, looking at the map and seeing like, oh, my student got into Yale, and where is your kid going to school? So it just accelerated the competition. So they took it upon themselves to get rid of this. And it was covered, the story was covered by the local media and covered by local television. And people complimented the kids for taking action and helping to cut back on all this competition that's happening. So that's one thing that they're doing. And of course, the other thing I'm doing is I'm going around giving talks everywhere and then hoping that they read the book. The number one people who love the book are the kids, all the teenagers. Give it to your teenager. They will love you and love the book.
Okay, and on that note, I would like to, we're not supposed to make vows, but I want you to promise softly that you will join us next year at this summit, provided there's no family issue that interferes with it. And we would love to have you here, and I, from the bottom of my heart, recommend that everybody go out and buy this book. It is an incredible read, and just phenomenal wisdom and advice. Esther, thanks so much for joining us and getting up early. We can't express enough gratitude.
Well, thank you for including me. I'm honored to be at the conference this way. I hope to be in person.
apprivoiseur, il sait bien avec on l'appelle, c'est lui qu'on vient de refuser. Rien ne va de sous prière, nous parlez bien l'outrage-teur. Il c'est l'autre que je préfère, il n'y a rien dit, mais il me plaît. Jamais connu de loi. Si tu m'aimais, mais pas je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, regarde-toi.
Regarde-toi.
Si tu m'aimais, mais pas. Si tu m'aimais pas, je t'aime.
Regarde-toi.
Mais si je t'aime, mais si je t'aime, regarde-toi.
And then tomorrow prepare some more surprises. Are you ready for Matthew Greenfield? Come on.